The pen felt heavier than it should have. I remember holding it between my fingers, hesitating just for a second. Not because I didn't trust my son, but because something deep inside me whispered that once I signed, nothing would ever be the same again. "Mom?" he said softly. "You okay?" I smiled and nodded. Yes, of course. And just like that, I signed my life away. My name is Margaret Lewis. I was 68 years old when my son took my house from me, without shouting, without violence, without a single illegal move. Just paper and patience. That house was never just bricks and wood. It was the reward for 40 years of work. It was where my husband, Daniel, and I moved in with nothing but hope and mismatched furniture, where we raised Ethan, where I stood alone in the kitchen the night Daniel died, holding the counter so I wouldn't collapse. After his death, the house became my safety, or so I thought. Ethan came back into my life on a rainy Tuesday evening. He looked older, tired, broken. "Mom," he said, hugging me tightly, "I need help." That sentence still echoes in my head. His marriage had failed. His business was struggling. Rent was overdue. "I just need somewhere stable," he said, "just for a little while." Little while. That phrase has ruined more lives than people realize. At first, everything felt nice. We ate together, watched TV, talked about old memories. He fixed small things around the house, changed light bulbs, cleared the garage. "You shouldn't be doing heavy things anymore," he told me. "Let me handle it." I felt cared for, protected. Then the conversations slowly changed. "Mom, what if something happens to you? Have you thought about the house legally? You don't want the government taking it, right?" I didn't understand legal talk. I never had. So when he brought papers, I listened. "It's just a trust," he explained. "The house stays in the family. You live here for life." "For life?" I asked. "Of course," he smiled. "I'm your son." That's when I stopped questioning. The first thing I lost wasn't the house, it was control. He started paying the bills for convenience, then managing my bank account to help, then reminding me when to eat, when to sleep. "Routine is important at your age," he said. At my age. 3 months later, I came home from my doctor appointment, and the front door looked different. New lock, shiny, unfamiliar. My key didn't work. I tried again. Nothing. My hands started shaking. I knocked. Ethan opened the door halfway. "Oh," he said casually, "I'd changed the locks." I laughed nervously. "Why?" He didn't laugh back. "Mom," he said calmly, "this is my house now." My chest tightened. "What?" "You signed it over, remember?" I looked at him, at the boy I raised, at the man standing between me and my own home, and for the first time in my life, I felt like a stranger in my own family. That night, I slept in my car. At 68 years old, and I realized something terrifying. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I dozed in my car, waking up every few minutes, my neck stiff, my back aching, my heart pounding like I had committed some crime. At dawn, I watched the sun rise through the windshield of a car I never imagined would become my bedroom. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. How did my life come to this? At 7:30 in the morning, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "You can come inside now. We need to talk." The word "can" sat heavy in my chest. Not "come home," not "mom," just "you can come inside." When I opened the door, the house felt different. Not warmer, not familiar, controlled. Ethan stood in the living room with his arms crossed. Behind him, sitting comfortably on my couch, was Laura, his wife, or rather his almost ex-wife, the woman who had barely spoken to me in years. She smiled thinly when she saw me. "Good morning," she said, like a guest who had overstayed. "We need boundaries, Mom," he began, his voice calm and rehearsed. Laura nodded. "This situation isn't healthy for anyone." I stood there, still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. "What situation?" I asked quietly. Ethan took a deep breath. "You wandering in and out, sleeping in the car. It's not safe." I stared at him. "You locked me out." "That was temporary," he replied quickly, "but now we need rules." Rules? In the house I paid off 10 years ago? Laura slid a piece of paper across the coffee table. A list. Typed, organized, cold. House rules. Bedroom access limited to assigned room. Curfew 9 p.m. No guests without permission. Monthly allowance $300. No financial decisions without approval. Household chores required. I felt dizzy. "Allowance?" I whispered. "Yes," Ethan said. "You don't work anymore, Mom. You need structure." I looked up at him. "My pension is managed by me now," he interrupted, "for your protection." Laura leaned forward. "You're lucky, really. Most seniors don't have family willing to care for them." Care. That's what they called it. They showed me my new room, the storage room near the laundry. A narrow bed, one small shelf, no lock. "This will be easier for you," Ethan said, "closer to chores." Chores. At 68 years old. That first night back inside, I lay awake listening, not to silence, but to control. Doors closing deliberately, whispers behind walls, Laura laughing in my kitchen, and something else, the sound of ownership. The next morning, the rules became real. Laura handed me a printed schedule. Breakfast, 7 a.m., laundry, 9 a.m., cleaning, 11 a.m., dinner prep, 5 p.m. "You're home all day," she said. "It makes sense." By week 2, I stopped being Margaret. I became Mom when they needed something, and her when they talked about me. She forgets things. She's emotional. She needs supervision. I heard it all. One afternoon, I tried to sit in the living room. Laura muted the TV. "Do you mind?" she said. "I'm working." I stood up immediately. Apologized. For existing. The allowance arrived monthly. $300. From my own pension. Controlled. Tracked. I had to ask before spending it. When I bought a new sweater, Ethan noticed. "You didn't mention this purchase," he said. I stared at him. "It was cold." "Still," he replied, "we need transparency." The humiliation didn't come all at once. It dripped. Slow, constant. One day, Laura invited friends over. I served coffee. One of them whispered loudly, "Is that her mother-in-law?" Laura smiled. "She lives with us. We take care of her." I stood there holding a tray, invisible. That night, I cried quietly in my small room. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to remind myself I was still human. But something was changing. Not outside, inside me. I started remembering things, little details. The exact day Ethan asked me to sign, the way he rushed me, the lawyer he didn't want me to speak to. And a question formed, slowly, dangerously. What exactly did I sign? One afternoon, while Laura was out and Ethan was distracted on a call, I went to the filing cabinet. My hands shook. Inside was a folder. My name. Legal papers. I pulled them out. And that's when I saw it. Not a trust, not protection, a full property transfer. Signed, recorded, final. My heart stopped. I sat on the floor, papers shaking in my hands. They hadn't just taken control, they had planned it. And in that moment, I made a decision. I would stop apologizing, I would stop shrinking, and I would find out exactly how to take my life back. The day they took my bedroom, something inside me finally broke. Not loudly, not in a way anyone noticed. It broke quietly, like a bone that cracks without bleeding, but never heals the same again. I had lived in the master bedroom for 29 years. That room held my marriage, my grief, my healing. Daniel had died in that bed. I had learned how to sleep alone there. And now it wasn't mine. It happened on a Tuesday. Laura knocked on my door, not asked, knocked, then opened it without waiting. "We're rearranging," she said. I sat up slowly. "Rearranging what?" She smiled. "The house." Behind her stood Ethan, holding a roll of painter's tape. He didn't look at me. "The master bedroom makes more sense for us," Laura continued, "and you don't really need all that space." I felt dizzy. "My things are in there." Ethan finally spoke. "We'll move them." They didn't ask. They didn't explain. They announced. By noon, my dresser was in the hallway, my clothes folded into plastic bins, my wedding photo placed face down on a chair. I stood in the corner, useless. Laura picked up the framed photo of Daniel. She glanced at it. "Oh," she said lightly, "do you want to keep this?" Her tone suggested, "Why would you?" "Yes," I whispered. She handed it back like an object with no value. That night, they slept in my bed. I knew because I heard laughter. Loud, careless, the kind of laughter you don't make when someone else is suffering. The storage room felt smaller after that. Lower ceiling, less air. Every time the washing machine shook, my bed trembled. I stopped sleeping. With no bedroom, I lost something else too, privacy. Laura started entering my room whenever she pleased. "I was just checking," she'd say. Checking what? My dignity? One afternoon, I caught her going through my purse. She didn't flinch. "You forget where you put things," she said. I hadn't forgotten anything. My phone disappeared for 2 days. When I asked about it, Ethan sighed. "You don't need it all the time." I had no way to call anyone. Then came the isolation. My sister called one evening. Laura answered. "Oh, Margaret's resting," she said sweetly. "She gets confused in the evenings." That was a lie. I stopped receiving mail. Laura said she was organizing it to help. My pension statements never reached me. I realized something terrifying. They were rewriting the story of who I was, not just to others, but to me. "You already ate," Laura would say when I was hungry. "You already asked that," Ethan would say when I hadn't. "You don't remember," they repeated, until I almost believed them. One night, I finally snapped. "I am not sick," I said, my voice shaking. "I am not confused." Laura looked at Ethan. "This is what I mean," she said softly. "She gets defensive." Defensive? Because I wanted my life back? A week later, Ethan brought home a pamphlet. Assisted living options for seniors. "I just want you safe," he said. My blood ran cold. "You're thinking of sending me away?" I asked. "No," Laura replied quickly. "Not sending, transitioning." Transitioning? Like furniture. That night, I packed a small bag. Documents I had hidden, my wedding ring, the photo of Daniel. I didn't know where I'd go, but I knew one thing. If I stayed, I would disappear. At 3 a.m., I quietly opened the back door. It was locked. A new lock. Again. I sat on the kitchen floor and cried for the first time in months. Not because of pain, but because of fear. That's when I noticed something. A card on the counter. A business card. Left behind accidentally. Evelyn Carter, elder law attorney. I stared at it like it was a lifeline. The next morning, when Laura left for work and Ethan went out, I took my chance. I borrowed the neighbor's phone. My hands shook as I dialed. Elder Law Office, how may I help you? I swallowed. My husband took my house, I said, and I think he's trying to erase me. There was a pause. Then a calm voice. You're not the first, she said, and you're not powerless. For the first time in months, I felt hope. There was no dramatic sympathy in Evelyn Carter's voice, no noise, no exaggeration, just calm and certainty, the kind of certainty I hadn't felt in months. Speak slowly, she said, and tell me everything from the beginning. I told her about the signatures, about the locks, the rules, the allowance, and the feeling that I was being erased, slowly, quietly. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. When I finally fell silent, she said one sentence that straightened my spine. This isn't just a family dispute, she said. This is elder financial abuse. I didn't even know what that term meant, but from her tone, I understood one thing. This was serious. Were you pressured? She asked. I nodded. Were you given the opportunity to consult an independent lawyer? No. Were you isolated from other people? Yes. She took a deep breath. Margaret, she said, this isn't accidental. It's a plan. For the first time, no one called me confused, forgetful, or stubborn. No one doubted my story. We'll need evidence, she said, and you need to stay safe. Safe. That word brought tears to my eyes. The following week, I quietly began documenting everything. When each lock was changed, the day my phone was taken, the times I was stopped from leaving the house. I hid a small diary behind the kitchen cabinets. One day, Ethan said to me, Mom, you've started asking too many questions. I smiled. I'm just improving my memory. Laura grew suspicious. She started coming into my room more often, checking things, watching. But I was careful. Evelyn had warned me. They'll try to prove that you're weak, because if they declare you incompetent, everything ends. My heart trembled. Can they say I'm crazy? I asked. They'll try, she answered plainly. That's why we have to move quickly. A few days later, Ethan took me to a doctor. This wasn't a routine checkup. It was a test. Just a few questions, ma'am, the doctor said. Laura was sitting in the room too. I understood immediately. The questions began. Date, time, names. I answered calmly. Laura interrupted. She forgets things often. Please be quiet, the doctor said. 15 minutes later, he closed the file. This woman is mentally sound, he said. Laura's face changed. That evening, the atmosphere in the house shifted. The silence felt heavy. Ethan called me into the kitchen, alone. What are you doing, Mom? He asked quietly. This could ruin everything. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. I'm just remembering the truth, I replied. That night, I called Evelyn. They're panicking, I told her. She smiled. I could hear it in her voice. That's a good sign, she said. It means erasing you is no longer easy. And in that moment, I realized something. I was fighting back, slowly, quietly, but with all my strength. The threat didn't come in words. It came on paper. An envelope, white, thick, with the smell of law on it. Laura placed the envelope in front of me. "This came in your name," she said, as if it were just another utility bill. I opened it. At the top, it read, "Legal notice." My hands began to tremble. "If you continue to interfere in household matters, if you attempt any legal action, you may be evicted from the property." Evicted. From the house I had bought with my youth, maintained through widowhood, protected from loneliness. At the bottom was a signature. Ethan Lewis, my son. Darkness swam before my eyes. Laura spoke calmly. "We don't want things to go this far, Margaret. Just cooperate." Cooperate? Cooperate with cruelty. I folded the paper, placed it quietly on the table, and walked out of the kitchen. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't sleep. I only thought. He no longer saw me as his mother. He saw me as a threat. The next morning, I called Evelyn. "They've sent a notice," I said. Her voice was calm. "That was expected," she replied. "Now they'll use their last weapons." "Can they throw me out?" I asked. "No," she said clearly. "Not legally, and certainly not morally." Then she said the sentence that changed the direction of everything. "Margaret, we're not going to defend anymore. Now we attack." Attack, a word I had never used for my own son. Evelyn continued, "We'll file a case for elder abuse, financial exploitation, coercion, psychological control." Each word felt like a wound, but each word was true. "You don't need to leave the house," she said. "If they force you, call the police. If they threaten you, collect evidence. If they pressure you, record it." From that day on, I turned fear into discipline, routine, a diary, recordings, timestamps, messages, witnesses. Ethan's behavior began to change. He became gentle. "Mom, we're worried about you. We don't want to lose you. This is all just lawyer games." For the first time, I saw his lies clearly. One night, he came into my room, alone. Laura wasn't there. "You're destroying me," he said. I stayed silent. "I did all this for you." His voice rose. For the first time, I answered. "No, you did this for yourself." He froze. "I gave you life, but you're taking mine." He turned around and left without a word. The following week, the first court notice arrived. Case registered. Laura was crying. Ethan was furious. A war had begun inside the house. But me? I was calm, strangely calm, because for the first time, I wasn't the victim. I was the claimant. And I knew one thing clearly. This fight isn't about the house. This fight is about my identity, my dignity, my existence. That night, I looked at Daniel's photograph and whispered, "I will not give up." The air outside the courthouse is different from the air at home. There, you are neither mother nor son. There, only truth and lies stand face to face. I arrived early in the morning. Simple clothes, hair neatly tied back, no fear on my face, only exhaustion and dignity. Ethan stood on the other side, in a suit, with his lawyer, pride in his eyes, and somewhere deep inside, anxiety. Laura was there too. She looked at me, then quickly looked away. When our names were called, I held my breath for a moment. This was the same son whose hand I once held to walk him to school, and today he stood against me. The judge opened the file. "This is an elder abuse case," he said. "This court takes such matters very seriously." Ethan shifted in his seat. His lawyer began speaking. "This is a family matter. The plaintiff is under mental stress. My client was only trying to protect. Evelyn stood up, calm, firm. Your Honor, if this were protection, the locks would not have been changed. If this were love, a mother would not have been forced to sleep in her car. The room fell silent. Evelyn presented the evidence: photographs, recordings, bank statements, legal notices, pages from my diary. Each page testified to a wound. The judge looked at me. Would you like to say something? My heart pounded. I stood. I have not come here against my son, I said softly. I have come here in defense of my existence. I explained how I was made to sign the papers, how I was isolated, how they tried to portray me as forgetful. I looked at Ethan. He could not meet my eyes. The judge asked, "Did you allow your mother to consult an independent lawyer?" Ethan remained silent. "Did you change the locks without her consent?" Silence. "Did you control her pension?" Laura lowered her head. The judge closed the file. "This court issues a temporary order," he said. "No restrictions will be placed on the house. The plaintiff will have full access. The defendant will not engage in any threats or pressure." I closed my eyes. This was not a victory, but it was a beginning. Outside the courthouse, Ethan approached me. "Mom, this wasn't necessary." I raised my hand. "The court has spoken," I said. "There will be no more discussions at home." For the first time, he looked truly small. That night, I slept in my old room, alone, in silence. And after years, that silence brought peace. But I knew this story was not over. This was only the beginning of truth. I returned to the house, legally, with a court order, but my heart was still left outside. The master bedroom was mine again, the same bed, the same window, the same marks on the walls, yet nothing felt the same. I opened the closet. My clothes were back, but rearranged. My papers had been put aside, as if someone else had reorganized my life. The silence in the house was strange. Ethan did not speak to me. Laura avoided my eyes. No arguments, no shouting, just a cold war. At the dining table, the three of us would sit together, but no one spoke. The sound of the spoon felt louder than words. One day, I said to Ethan, "We need to talk." He nodded. "We already did, in court." I took a deep breath. That was the law. This is the heart. He stayed silent. I understood then. I had taken my house back, but not my son. At night, I lay awake. I wondered, does justice always bring peace, or does it sometimes only bring the truth into the open? One day, Laura packed her bags. She said, "We're leaving for a few days." A few days that turned into months. For the first time, I was alone in the house, truly alone. I walked through every room. The memories were still there, but so were the wounds. I thought, maybe to save the house, I would have to change myself. Evelyn called. "How are you?" she asked. I told the truth. "I'm fine, but I feel empty." She said softly, "That's normal. You've gained freedom from abuse, but the grief of the relationship is still there." A few days later, Ethan returned, alone. Standing at the door, he said, "I want to talk." We sat in the kitchen, the same table, the same chair. "I ruined everything," he said. I said nothing. "I did all this for you." His voice rose. I asked quietly, "And me?" He looked down. "I didn't see you as a person. I saw you as a problem." Pain rose in my chest, but not anger. I said, "You are my son.
but I am not your property." He broke down, crying, for the first time without a courtroom. We didn't talk about forgiveness. We talked about the future. And that conversation was not easy. I made a decision. I would live in this house, but on my own terms. And if the relationship survived, it would survive on truth. That night, I looked out the window. The air was cool. For the first time, I felt my heart a little lighter. This was not the ending. This was the beginning of healing. Morning came, and I woke up on my own.
There was no son, no daughter-in-law, no guest in my room. There was silence, but this silence was freedom. For the first time, I said to myself, "This house is mine. My life, my rules." After breakfast, Ethan spoke. "Mom, I know I was wrong. I didn't understand the value of your love or your sacrifices." I steadied myself, firm but calm. "Not everything can be brought back. I can guide you, but control will not be in your hands. We will have to rebuild this relationship with respect." He lowered his head without saying a word. I thought to myself, from now on, the decisions of my life will be made only for me. I picked up my bag and called Evelyn. "Today I'm going out to do something for myself." For the first time, I did things in the house only for myself. I made tea. I opened the windows. I arranged my books, not by anyone's command, by my own choice. At night, I reviewed the legal documents again. They were no longer just papers. They were my protection, my autonomy. A few days later, Ethan said, "I want to leave the house, but I also want to stay. I want to live here according to your rules, Mom." I smiled and said, "It won't be easy, but this is the beginning we both need. Respect, love, and boundaries. These will be our new rules." Life began again in the house, but now it was my life, my decisions, my boundaries. I thought, if anyone ever tries to enslave me again, I am ready. The law, my autonomy, and my heart, all three stand with me. At night, standing by the window, I felt the air. For the first time, I felt freedom, not just in the house, but in my heart as well. This decision was not easy. Memories of the past, the complexity of relationships, everything was still there. But now, one thing was clear. I am the owner of my life. And that, in the end, was the greatest victory. The documents, the court, and my son's past mistakes, everything now stood in my favor.